The shadows of our past shape the men we become. For the Sigma male, that journey often begins with childhood trauma that nobody talks about. I'm not here to give you shallow advice or recycled platitudes. What I'm about to share comes from years of research, countless conversations with Sigma men, and a deep understanding of how early wounds create the most independent and resilient men in society. Before we dive into this life-changing content, I need to ask you something important. Are you ready to face the truth about why you think, feel, and act the way you do? If you're searching for real answers that mainstream psychology won't give you, hit that subscribe button now. This channel exists to unveil the hidden realities of Sigma masculinity that others are afraid to discuss. The childhood trauma of Sigma men remains one of the most powerful yet unaddressed forces shaping elite masculinity today. Let's begin this journey together. 1. Strategic solitude. The first childhood trauma that shapes Sigma men is what I call strategic solitude. As children, most Sigma males experience periods of profound isolation, not by choice, but by circumstance. Perhaps you were the quiet child who preferred books to playground games, or maybe your family moved frequently, forcing you to constantly rebuild social connections. For others, it was being the odd one out, too intelligent, too sensitive, or too different to truly belong. This isolation wasn't just occasional loneliness. It was a persistent state of being separate from the group, of watching social dynamics unfold from the outside. While other children were learning to navigate group hierarchies, you were learning something far more valuable: how to be content in your own company. Research shows that children who experience this type of social isolation develop enhanced observational skills and internal dialogue. Your mind became your primary companion, teaching you to process complex thoughts independently rather than seeking external validation. This trauma, yes, it is a form of trauma, rewired your neural pathways to find comfort in solitude rather than fear it. Consider the case of Thomas, who grew up as the only child of workaholic parents. Left alone for hours after school, he developed rich inner worlds through reading and self-directed learning. By age 12, he could entertain himself for days without external stimulation. Today, as a successful entrepreneur, he credits this forced solitude with his ability to think independently of market trends and social pressure. This strategic solitude becomes a Sigma's superpower in adulthood. While alpha males require constant social feedback and validation, you've learned to trust your own judgment first. Your childhood trauma of isolation transformed into the strategic advantage of independent thinking, a cornerstone of the Sigma mindset. Emotional armor and its origins. The second formative trauma comes in the form of emotional armor, protective. Psychological mechanisms developed in response to early emotional neglect or inconsistency. As children, many future Sigma men experienced environments where emotional expression was either discouraged or met with unpredictable responses. Perhaps you had parents who were physically present but emotionally distant, or authority figures who responded to vulnerability with dismissal or even ridicule. The message was clear: emotions are dangerous, unpredictable, and best kept hidden. In response, you began constructing what psychologists call emotional armor, a sophisticated system of defenses that protected your inner self from further harm. This armor allowed you to present a controlled exterior while maintaining a rich but private emotional world beneath the surface. Michael's story exemplifies this pattern. Raised by a father who believed showing emotions was weakness and a mother who was emotionally volatile, Michael learned to carefully regulate his emotional expression. By age 10, he had mastered the art of the stoic exterior. His childhood friends described him as hard to read or mysterious, labels that would follow him into adulthood as a successful negotiator who reveals only what serves his purpose. The emotional armor built during childhood becomes the Sigma's valuable asset in navigating complex social and professional landscapes. While this trauma creates challenges in intimate relationships, it grants Sigmas remarkable emotional resilience and the ability to remain unfazed under pressure that makes others crumble. This capacity wasn't a gift. It was forged through the necessity of protecting yourself in environments where emotional authenticity wasn't safe. Your childhood trauma of emotional inconsistency transformed into the strategic advantage of emotional self-regulation, another defining quality of the Sigma male. 3. The invisible wounds of childhood. Beyond isolation and emotional armor lies a deeper layer of Sigma formation, the invisible wounds that come from unrecognized potential. Many Sigma men grew up in environments where their unique gifts went unnoticed or were actively discouraged. Perhaps you were the creative thinker in a family that valued convention, the philosophical mind in a community that prized practicality, or the sensitive observer in an environment that demanded aggression. Your natural inclinations didn't align with expectations, creating a fundamental disconnect between who you were and who others wanted you to be. These invisible wounds cut deeper than more obvious forms of trauma because they target identity itself. When core aspects of your authentic self are consistently invalidated, you learn to operate on two levels: the visible self that meets external expectations and the true self that exists beyond others' perception. James exemplifies this pattern. Possessing exceptional analytical abilities from an early age, he grew up in a family of athletes who couldn't relate to his intellectual interests. His questions were met with impatience, his observations with dismissal. Rather than abandoning his natural inclinations, James learned to pursue them privately while maintaining a socially acceptable facade. Today, as a successful strategic consultant, he operates comfortably at the intersection of multiple worlds, belonging fully to none, the quintessential Sigma position. This childhood wound created a powerful adaptive response, the ability to exist comfortably outside conventional categories while moving seamlessly between them. Your unrecognized authentic self became your hidden strength, allowing you to observe social constructs as systems rather than immutable realities. The invisible wounds of childhood taught you that external validation would never align with your internal reality, so you stopped seeking it altogether. This trauma transformed into the strategic advantage of authentic self-guidance, perhaps the most defining characteristic of the Sigma male. 4. Rejection as a formative force. The fourth critical trauma in Sigma development centers on early experiences of rejection, not random social exclusion, but significant rejection that altered your relationship with acceptance itself. For many Sigma men, a pivotal rejection experience fundamentally changed how they view attachment to groups, ideas, or even success. Perhaps you experienced rejection from a primary caregiver, a peer group you valued, or an institution where you sought belonging. The common thread wasn't just the rejection itself, but your response to it. Rather than desperately seeking reintegration, you chose to redefine the entire concept of belonging. Alexander's story illuminates this pattern. At 12, his carefully prepared science project, representing weeks of passionate work, was dismissed by teachers who favored more conventional approaches. Rather than conforming to their expectations, for the next project, Alexander made a critical psychological shift. He detached his sense of accomplishment from external recognition entirely. This wasn't surrender, but transformation. He continued pursuing excellence on his terms, developing breakthrough ideas that would later revolutionize his field. This childhood rejection triggers what psychologists call adaptive detachment, a recalibration of how you measure success and validation. Unlike alphas, who need constant affirmation of their status, or betas who seek validation through service to the group, you learn to find deeper satisfaction in meeting your internal standards, regardless of external response. The formative rejection. Experiences didn't make you antisocial, they made you selectively social. You became capable of engaging fully with others while maintaining psychological independence from their judgment. This trauma transformed into the strategic advantage of outcome independence, the ability to pursue your objectives without emotional attachment to specific results or recognition. Your childhood trauma of significant rejection became the foundation for one of the Sigma's most powerful traits: the capacity to walk away from any situation that doesn't meet your standards, without the emotional turmoil others experience when facing similar choices. 5. The birth of self-reliance. The fifth developmental trauma that forges the Sigma male identity involves premature responsibility, being forced to develop self-reliance far earlier than your peers. For many Sigma men, childhood included periods where you had no choice but to depend primarily on yourself. Perhaps you grew up with parents who were physically or emotionally unavailable, forcing you to meet your own needs. Maybe financial hardship required you to become resourceful beyond your years. For others, it was frequent relocation or family instability that necessitated rapid adaptation to new environments without substantial support. This premature self-reliance wasn't just about learning practical skills, though many Sigma men did become remarkably competent at an early age. The deeper transformation occurred in your relationship with dependency itself. While your peers were learning the social exchange of needs and support, you were developing systems to meet your own needs independently. Daniel's experience demonstrates this pattern clearly. When his single mother began working double shifts, 11-year-old Daniel found himself responsible for his own meals, homework, and daily schedule. By 13, he had developed sophisticated systems for everything from household maintenance to academic achievement. Today, as an independent consultant, Daniel navigates complex challenges with the same methodical self-sufficiency, assembling resources and solutions without the organizational dependencies that limit his colleagues. What mainstream psychology often misidentifies as attachment issues in Sigma men is actually this highly developed self-reliance. Rather than fearing connection, you've simply never developed the reflexive dependency that characterizes most social relationships. This trauma transformed into the strategic advantage of systems thinking, the ability to create solutions rather than seeking them from others. Your childhood necessity of self-reliance became the foundation for the Sigma male's most practical strength, the capacity to operate effectively without the support structures that others consider essential. This independence isn't cold detachment, it's the mastery of your own needs and resources. 6. The paradox of power through pain. The sixth formative trauma in the Sigma male's development involves a profound paradox: situations of powerlessness that ultimately created exceptional personal power. For many Sigma men, childhood included periods of significant constraint or control that you could neither escape nor change. Perhaps you grew up under rigid parental authority that suppressed your autonomy, or within educational systems that penalized your natural thinking style. Maybe you faced economic limitations that restricted your opportunities, or cultural expectations that denied your authentic expression. The common factor wasn't just limitation. It was being forced to develop inner resources when external options were unavailable. This paradoxical trauma differs from mere hardship. The critical element was the combination of external constraint with your refusal to surrender internal sovereignty. While your peers were learning to navigate power structures through compliance or rebellion, you were developing something far more valuable: internal locus of control within external limitation. Eric's experience exemplifies this pattern. Growing up in a highly controlling religious community with strict behavioral codes, he couldn't openly defy the system without severe consequences. Rather than either rebelling or conforming, Eric developed a sophisticated inner world where he questioned, analyzed, and ultimately transcended the belief systems imposed on him. By 17, while outwardly meeting expectations, he had developed a personal philosophy more complex than that of many adults. Today, as a respected strategist, Eric navigates corporate power structures with the same dual awareness, honoring necessary protocols while maintaining complete intellectual independence. Your childhood powerlessness, paradoxically, forced the development of power that couldn't be taken away. Unlike alphas, whose power depends on controlling others, or betas, whose influence comes through supporting the hierarchy, your power exists independent of external validation or position. This trauma transformed into the strategic advantage of unshakable internal authority, the capacity to act from personal conviction regardless of external pressure. The childhood trauma of external constraint became the foundation for the Sigma male's most subtle strength, the ability to engage with power structures without being psychologically captured by them. This isn't just resistance, it's transcendence of the power paradigm itself. 7. Reconnecting with the inner child. The seventh critical element in the Sigma journey involves healing the original wounds through conscious reconnection with the authentic self. For many Sigma men, this stage represents a profound challenge, reconciling the protective adaptations you developed with the vulnerable child who needed them in the first place. This reconnection isn't abstract psychology. It's a practical reclamation of aspects of yourself that were strategically suppressed to survive challenging environments. The Sigma paradox is that the very adaptations that protected you can eventually limit you if they remain unconscious and unintegrated. Perhaps you've noticed patterns of avoidance despite your general confidence, or relationships that repeat familiar disappointments despite your independence. Maybe you recognize an incongruence between your professional capability and your emotional accessibility, or between your intellectual depth and your capacity for play and spontaneity. Christopher's journey illuminates this pattern. Having mastered emotional regulation through childhood trauma, he built a successful consulting career on his ability to remain calm and strategic in high-pressure environments. Yet at 34, he recognized that the same emotional armor that served him professionally was preventing deeper connections in his personal life. Rather than abandoning his hard-won capabilities, Christopher began intentionally creating contexts where he could safely experience emotions he had long suppressed, gradually integrating his adaptive strengths with his authentic needs. This reconnection phase isn't regression but integration, combining your developed strengths with reclaimed authenticity. Unlike conventional therapy that often pathologizes Sigma traits, this approach recognizes that your adaptations were necessary and valuable. The goal isn't to dismantle your Sigma identity, but to consciously choose which aspects serve your current life. The most powerful Sigma men understand that reconnecting with their inner child doesn't make them vulnerable to old wounds. It makes them more complete. This integration transforms the strategic advantage of emotional regulation into emotional range, the capacity to access both strength and vulnerability as different facets of the same integrated self. Your childhood adaptations created your capabilities. Now, conscious reconnection with your authentic self creates choice about how and when to deploy them. This isn't weakness, it's the ultimate expression of Sigma autonomy, breaking the cycle of emotional suppression. The eighth critical development in the Sigma journey involves consciously breaking the cycle of emotional suppression that began as necessary protection but may now limit your full potential. For many Sigma men, this represents one of the most challenging transitions, moving from unconscious emotional management to conscious emotional mastery. The distinction is crucial. Emotional suppression was likely essential in environments where authentic expression wasn't safe or effective. However, continued unconscious suppression creates a diminishing return, protecting you from threats that no longer exist while limiting your access to your full range of psychological resources. Perhaps you've noticed that while you rarely feel overwhelmed by emotion, you also rarely feel deeply moved or connected. Maybe you've recognized that your emotional regulation, while impressive in crisis, creates distance in potential relationships. The challenge isn't developing emotions you don't have, it's gaining access to the full spectrum of emotions you've learned to automatically regulate. Nathan's experience demonstrates this evolution clearly. Raised by a volatile father whose unpredictable anger made emotional expression dangerous, Nathan developed remarkable emotional control. By 36, this capacity had helped him build a successful leadership career, but he recognized that the same automatic regulation was preventing him from fully engaging in his marriage and with his children. Rather than abandoning his emotional discipline, Nathan began deliberately creating safe contexts to experience a wider emotional range, starting with controlled environments and gradually expanding to more spontaneous expression. This isn't about becoming emotionally unregulated, it's about developing conscious choice over your emotional expression. Unlike mainstream advice that often encourages indiscriminate vulnerability, the Sigma approach involves strategic emotional disclosure based on context, relationship, and purpose. The most effective Sigma men understand that breaking the cycle of automatic emotional suppression doesn't mean embracing emotional chaos. It means developing precise control over when, where, and how they access their full emotional spectrum. This evolution transforms the strategic advantage of emotional armor into emotional versatility, the capacity to deploy different emotional responses based on conscious choice rather than unconscious habit. Your childhood adaptation of emotional regulation created stability in unstable environments. Now, conscious emotional versatility creates unprecedented effectiveness across the full spectrum of human experience, from deep connection to strategic performance. 9. Strength without sacrifice. The ninth critical development in the Sigma journey involves achieving strength without unnecessary sacrifice, optimizing your exceptional capabilities while eliminating the hidden costs of unconscious adaptations. For many Sigma men, this represents the most sophisticated stage of development, maintaining your hard-won strengths while releasing the limitations that initially accompanied them. This optimization isn't mere self-improvement, it's a fundamental recalibration of how your Sigma traits operate. The objective isn't changing who you are, but ensuring that your unique capacities serve your current life rather than echoing past necessities. Perhaps you've recognized that your independence, while powerful, sometimes prevents beneficial collaboration. Maybe your self-reliance, while effective, occasionally leads you to tackle challenges alone, when strategic alliance would be more efficient. The pattern isn't weakness in your Sigma traits, it's lack of flexibility in how you deploy them. Victor's experience demonstrates this evolution clearly. His childhood necessity to be self-sufficient had developed into exceptional problem-solving abilities that propelled his entrepreneurial success. However, at 42, he recognized that the same reflexive self-reliance was creating unnecessary workload and limiting his company's growth. Rather than abandoning his capability, Victor developed a nuanced approach, maintaining his problem-solving excellence while strategically engaging others in areas where collaboration created better outcomes. His capacity didn't diminish. It became optimized through conscious application. This isn't about compromising your Sigma strengths. It's about deploying them with greater precision. Unlike conventional advice that often encourages conformity to social expectations, the Sigma approach involves strategic optimization based on objective effectiveness rather than external pressure. The most evolved Sigma men understand that strength without sacrifice doesn't mean abandoning boundaries or independence. It means eliminating unnecessary limitations that no longer serve your current objectives. This evolution transforms the strategic advantage of Sigma traits into Sigma mastery, the capacity to deploy your unique strengths with maximum impact and minimum friction. Your childhood adaptations created necessary protection in challenging environments. Now, conscious optimization creates unprecedented effectiveness in environments you choose and create on your terms. The evolved Sigma path. The 10th and culminating development in the Sigma journey involves consciously designing your ideal path based on integrated understanding of your unique strengths and authentic preferences. For evolved Sigma men, this represents the most liberated stage of development, moving beyond both social convention and reactive independence to create a life precisely calibrated to your true nature. This conscious design isn't mere success or even self-actualization. It's the creation of a life so aligned with your authentic self that it requires neither conformity to external standards nor reflexive rejection of them. The objective isn't proving anything to anyone. It's experiencing the effortless power that emerges when your external reality perfectly reflects your internal truth. Perhaps you've achieved conventional success, but find yourself questioning whether your accomplishments truly reflect what matters most to you. Maybe you've established your independence from social expectations, but haven't fully implemented your own vision. The evolved Sigma path involves moving beyond both conformity and reaction to pure creation. Marcus's experience illustrates this evolution clearly. Having established his professional reputation and financial independence by 45, he recognized that his life contained elements he had pursued from both social programming and reactive independence rather than authentic preference. Over the next 3 years, he systematically redesigned his professional commitments, relationships, and daily practices, not based on external metrics of success or demonstrable independence, but on deep alignment with his authentic values and natural rhythm. The result wasn't radical external change, but profound internal alignment that made his life feel effortless despite its objective demands. This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about creating precise alignment between who you are and how you live. Unlike conventional achievement that often requires conforming to external standards, or reflexive independence that can be equally constraining through automatic rejection of norms, the evolved Sigma path involves conscious design based on deeply examined personal truth. The most evolved Sigma men understand that the ultimate expression of their unique nature isn't found in either conventional success or visible nonconformity. It's found in the creation of a life so aligned with their authentic self that it feels like inevitable expression rather than effortful achievement or deliberate rebellion. Your childhood traumas created necessary adaptations in challenging environments. Your conscious evolution transformed those adaptations into exceptional capabilities. Now, your intentional implementation creates unprecedented congruence between who you are and how you live, the ultimate expression of the Sigma potential. We've traveled the complete journey of how childhood trauma shapes the Sigma male's unique position in society. The path from wounded child to self-determined man is both challenging and profound, a transformation that deserves far more recognition than society typically allows. If these insights have resonated with your experience, consider that you're not alone on this path. Millions of men carry similar patterns without understanding their origins or potential. By subscribing to this channel, you join a community dedicated to transforming early wounds into unprecedented strength through genuine understanding rather than superficial techniques. Unlike mainstream content creators who scratch the surface of male psychology, this channel dives into the depths that others fear to explore. Each week, we examine another aspect of the Sigma experience, from practical strategies for leveraging your unique strengths to sophisticated perspectives on navigating a world designed for different psychological profiles. Subscribe now to continue this journey of transformation. The childhood trauma of Sigma men isn't just a story of survival. It's the foundation of a revolutionary approach to masculine power that transcends conventional hierarchies and expectations. Join us in building a new understanding of what it means to transform past wounds into future strength. The evolved Sigma path isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity, integration, and conscious creation of a life aligned with your true nature. Subscribe now to ensure you don't miss a single step in this ongoing exploration of the most misunderstood and potentially powerful male archetype in modern society.